hardcore boxing fans out there, how are you doing? Big Porky here, the voice of hardcore boxing, and I hope you've subscribed as well, or I'll be coming to pay you a visit.
Porky's Corner is proud to be sponsored by Spartan Site Solutions. They are specialists in civil engineering and demolition contracts for the construction industry. Interested parties should visit their website or contact Porky's Corner for a referral at porkycorner@mail.com.
Welcome to part 2. I'm just waiting for Julian to log in. Here he is. Julian, Roy Jones. Hey?
Hopefully we've got volume, yeah?
Yeah, Roy Jones is going to fight Tommy Fury.
So first of all, I assume that's an exhibition and not a real fight.
Yeah, who would you favour if it were a real fight?
Well, Tommy would knock him out. I mean, he's an old man. He's shot to pieces. I saw him doing some shadowboxing actually about 12 months ago, just in a gym, and it was quite hard to watch. I've met Roy Jones. I met him in Rotherham actually. Celebrity night, Kelsey and me and my lad had a photograph taken with him. And anyway, I saw this footage of him shadowboxing last year, and it was really worrying because, you know, his feet and his hand coordination kind of wasn't there. And I know nothing's come out, but I kind of wondered if he'd got some kind of CTE or something, the great Roy Jones. There was something when you look at the subtle signs when you see a guy moving around, and they're moving like they're kind of like 70 years old, but they're not, they're in the 50s. It's kind of a worrying sign. So I worry about the health of Roy Jones Jr. And what I can't get my head around, if this is just a hoax on social media, or if there genuinely is talk of them fighting in some kind of exhibition, I can't understand why anybody would be interested in that. It's bizarre.
Well, look at the age difference.
Tommy Fury would hurt him really, really badly and knock him out really badly. And anybody who thinks that wouldn't be the case, you must like really hate Tommy Fury, or you must still believe that Roy Jones can fight a little bit. Now, the reality is Roy Jones can't fight at all now. As I said, he doesn't look well when he moves. The Tyson exhibition was a weird thing. But we all saw what happened when Enzo Maccarinelli fought Roy Jones, didn't we? Yeah. That's probably one of the harder things I've had to watch in boxing, is that, because that was a savage knockout from a much bigger fighter. And Roy Jones's resistance went completely quite some time ago. And then Maccarinelli did that to him. And some of the exhibitions he's had, catch the odd one online, not talking the Tyson ones, some of the other ones, is like really, really bad. And I hope that's not a real contest, and I hope it's not an open, even if it's an exhibition, I hope it's not an open spar, if that makes sense. Because Tommy Fury would potentially maim Roy Jones.
You think they'd put it on though? Would you put it past them?
I think that would do Tommy Fury's reputation some damage. Okay, people say, well, why would it? He's fighting YouTubers. At least the young, fit men, aren't they? And how addictive must the limelight be, and how how broke must Roy Jones be to consider something like that? It has to be broke. I mean, I don't know much about his financial state. I hope he's kept millions and I hope he's a very, very rich man, but he's either addicted to the limelight or he is having money problems. But it's just another example, isn't it, of nobody saves these fallen soldiers, does it? I think it's really sad actually, and I would hate to see that.
Yeah, I would.
I don't think Tommy Fury will touch that.
No, well, let's hope not. Crushers called out Devin Haney and Josh Taylor.
I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world to call Devin Haney out. He's red hot right now. He's boxed last weekend. He's clearly not going to fight in February. Why is one of the biggest new stars in boxing going to come over to the UK to fight a guy without a belt and a guy without anything of any value to a fighter like Devin Haney? So it's just easy to call him out because it's never going to make any kind of sense. The Josh Taylor fight, you could see why there might be an angle in that one. Josh Taylor looks like he's not the fighter that we saw 2 to 3 years ago. He just doesn't look the same. And I don't know how he would handle welterweight. I still think Josh Taylor, in terms of skill set, is like head and shoulders above a Conor Benn. But I guess timing's everything. But I think Josh Taylor would beat him, by the way. But he's just calling. Listen, what this is, right? Is I've said this to you before. This is name association, and this is classic marketing. So if you're Conor Benn, you're not going to call out the guy you're really going to fight. So Conor Benn will know right now who he's going to fight in February. He'll have a damn good idea who he's going to fight. And what he knows is whoever is called out is probably thinking the public might not respond that well to this. So all he'll turn around and say is, I've called everybody out. I've called Kell Brook out. I've called Manny Pacquiao out. Because he has, hasn't he, since September. I've called Amir Khan out. I've called Boots Ennis out. I've called everybody out. Nobody wants to fight me. I've even called Devin Haney out, and he doesn't want to fight me. So I'm having to fight, Barry also. I'm having to fight whoever, Keith Thurman, drag him from a retirement home. I'm having to do that. And it's classic stuff. He's not going to turn around and tell us. He's not calling out the guy he's fighting in February, let's put it that way. He knows who he's fighting in February.
Yeah. What about Tank and Shakur Stevenson? That's a good fight, isn't it?
Two fantastic southpaws. That would be mouth-watering. I didn't watch Shakur Stevenson's last fight. He got really poor feedback and poor responses on that one, but he's a brilliant fighter. You can't judge a man just on one night. He's a real talent. Tank is a talent. Unfortunately, he's a naughty boy as well. He's always in some kind of controversy or other. He looks to me like a fighter who's got a bit of a drink problem as well. He's often apparently intoxicated. But those are that at lightweight or light welterweight would be one of the. It'd be like a high skilled chess match. It'd be like a really highly skilled fight between boxing IQs. I might fancy Tank to win that fight.
Yeah. What about the Devin Haney against Crawford?
That's a great fight, but it's like anything, isn't it? It does take time to grow into the weight. So Crawford was a lightweight. Devin was a lightweight. He's now moved up, and the danger is always when you weight hop too quickly. You have to give you a chance for only so much lean muscle you can build, and you have to give your body and your skeleton a chance to get used to being a little bit heavier and a little bit denser before you can start jumping up too much. I know we're only talking about lightweight to welterweight against a former lightweight, but Crawford's been at the weight too much for me. It's just a case of that's not the right fight right now for Devin Haney. I think there are other fights I would take out there at this point in time at £140. But the great thing with Crawford, because Canelo and Crawford, there were talks about that fight. The great thing there is Crawford's really on the map now, isn't he? He seems to be the fighter who everybody wants to fight because he's the man right now, isn't he? He's the number one pound for pound fighter in the world.
Who's your top 6 pound for pound?
Well, I think Crawford's definitely number one. Great question, really good question. I think you have to have Usyk up there. I'm not suggesting he'd be number two, by the way. When I give you the names, they're not in any particular order. When I look at pound for pound fighters, you got to look at achievements, you got to look at skill sets, but you also got to look at recent activity, and of course the whole CV. The CV is everything. So if we look at mainly focus on the CV, you'd have to say that Canelo Alvarez is the pound for pound top fighter in the world, but he's slowed a little bit, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Does he make the top 6? I'd say yes, but is he number one? I'd say no. I think Crawford's number one. Haney might be number 5. Beterbiev, Usyk, you got to have them in there, haven't you? And Inoue. I think Inoue, if that probably pronounced, maybe I pronounced it.
Tank at number 6.
Those are the guys I'd say: Crawford, Usyk, Beterbiev, Inoue, Tank, Haney, Canelo. Those 6 or 7 guys, you got to have those in any order you choose. But I think you have to say that number one be very, very difficult to pick anybody who's right now hotter or better than Crawford.
Yeah, what about Crawford against Boots Ennis?
It'd be a great fight, wouldn't it? Because Boots brings the speed. He hasn't really had that marquee win as such yet. But I think what's happened with Crawford now is he's moved into that. You remember the Fab Four when you move into a certain territory, and the only really big fights you're going to get against other big fighters. And Boots isn't that marquee fighter right now, is he? He's an unbeaten fighter. No, I don't know what belts he's got. I don't pay too much attention. He's a contender as far as I'm concerned in old money. But it'd be a great fight. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what Crawford does next. People are calling him out, but he's been a bit tight-lipped, hasn't he, about what his next move is. And again, he might have to be careful because he might find if he moves up and up, that at some point there'll be a bridge too far in the way. Bit like Canelo against Bivol. I mean, I know he'd beaten light heavyweights before. They weren't the best light heavyweights in the world, but when he fought Bivol, who's had such a massive wingspan and was physically a really big light heavyweight, it was just a bridge too far for Canelo. So I don't want Crawford to keep going through the weights and then eventually get beat just because he's not big enough. I'd rather he got beat because he wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Lyndon Arthur against Bivol.
Hopefully it's a good payday for Lyndon Arthur. It's always good to see a Brit in a big fight. I can't see it being. There's no upset in that fight. I can't see there being any kind of upset. Lyndon Arthur's huge at light heavyweight. He's a specimen, and I know Bivol said he can also do 12 stone if he has to. So physically, he's in there. But for me, Lyndon Arthur, and I'm being respectful now, I've seen a couple of his fights on Channel 5. A real, pretty lower level domestic. There was one opponent recently, I can't remember his name. I think it was the fight before last. And after 6 or 7 rounds, he looked to be struggling for me. And if you really are the cream and an elite world champion or an elite top level 175 pounder, there are some guys I've seen him in with. He should be just taking them apart. He should be like wiping them out with ease, and he's not. So whenever I see a fighter struggle at domestic level, I don't buy all this IBO belt, this belt ranking. Rankings mean nothing to me. I'm talking about pure best light heavyweights in the world. I don't see Lyndon Arthur as being one of the top 7 or 8 light heavyweights in the world. I don't ultimately think he's in Bivol's class. I hope he gets paid really well. I hope he performs really well. But I expect him to get well beat. If that's a knockout or points, I couldn't say, but he'll get well beat by Bivol.
You think, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. levels everything.
Yeah. What about Anthony Joshua against Otto Wally?
AJ will knock him out. I watched what Otto Wallin's last fight. I caught it on a foreign channel last week. I watched the replay against, was it Gassiev, and he's made to measure for Anthony Joshua. I mean, it depends how, if we talk about a fired up Anthony Joshua, because we've not seen that for some time. But what I noticed is there's two things about Otto Wallin what make him perfect for Anthony Joshua. The first one is he's not really a big puncher. He's not a big enough, sharp enough puncher to give Joshua too many problems. But the second thing is he never moves his head. So he's one of those weird fighters who shapes up and he's got the high hands and he'll circle the ring to his right, he'll circle the ring to his left. But what he doesn't do, he doesn't dip and roll and slide. The head never really moves off what I call that fairground target. It's like a target, a fairground target, and it never moves off the line and it goes like that. And whenever I see a fighter, I'll have to show you this one day, Russell. I used to do it with the fighters and put some tape on a mirror and get them dipping and rolling and pivoting and stuff. And whenever you see a fighter whose head is continually on the same horizon, no matter what stage of a fight he's at, and if you back him up to the ropes and his head continues to be on the same horizon, he's wide open for a backhand. And a little bit Charles Martin, like the Charles Martin knockdowns. Southpaws are only tricky when they're tricky. Orthodox fighters are only tricky when they're tricky. It's not always the stance. It's about how good that fighter is using that stance, like Usyk, Manny Pacquiao, Pernell Whitaker, Hector Camacho, Marvin Hagler. There's really, really brilliant, clever southpaws. But if you look at Otto Wallin, no head movement. So I can see. Yeah, I think Joshua he'll get through enough times to get him out of there. It might not be pretty. It might be scrappy for 5 or 6 rounds, but Wallin's lack of head movement for me, it's like I said the same thing to you when he fought the last guy Joshua knocked out. It's about stylistically getting the right kind of opponent to make someone look good. Now I know AJ didn't look great in his last fight, but who was the guy he beat? What's the bloody guy's name? The huge Viking who was on the juice. I forget his name. Hellenius. Well, Hellenius had a really bad habit of when he threw that jab, he'd stick his chin in the air, but it was really, really slow with the recoil. And what happens is really clever fighters, and sorry, I'm going to coaching mode now, is really clever fighters when they are tall. I always just said to boxers, when you get to the outside of the ring and you start to go up against the ropes, you make yourself small. Remember that advert for the Volkswagen Polo when it says, how protected do you feel when you make yourself small? And it showed a boxer on the ropes squatting down. Now, Robert Hellenius used to have this thing that when he walks back onto the ropes, just like Willie Hutchins did when he got banged out when he was with Dom, if a fighter who's tall walks back onto the ropes with his head up, you can't miss him with a right hand. You just time the right hand over the jab. And it's like a weird thing what tall fighters do is they get to a part of a ring on the outside where they know they're running out of space and they'll look over the gloves. And when you go small, the golden rule, sorry, I'm preaching, but when you're tall and you go up against the ropes, before you pivot, before you claim, the golden rule is you look through the gloves. You don't look over the gloves, you look through the gloves. And what happened with the Viking and Hellenius was when he walks backwards, he starts to look over the gloves. So AJ must have rehearsed that shot. And I only had so much notice against that kid. They must have rehearsed that shot because everybody knows what he does. And it's a similar thing with Wallin. He looks through the gloves a little bit more. But what he never does is Otto Wallin never drops his height. So again, repeating the point, Wallin's head is always on the same horizon all the time. So all you have to do is time it like a fairground fire range. Is it won't dip and pivot like a good fighters drop to the one side, they roll underneath, they drop to another, the pivot. The head's constantly moving. You change the heights, you change the angle. Whereas Otto Walling, all he does is he changes the angle, but he doesn't change the heights. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
he's going to be on the end of the right hand. He won't be that hard to find with the right hand. And I know he gave Fury fits. I think that was partly down to the cut. Fury finding his rhythm during his comeback. I know he dropped a lot of weight for that fight, but whatever we say about Anthony Joshua, he hits bloody hard with the right hand, and he hits a lot harder than Tyson Fury does. So once AJ hits him, it's a made-to-measure opponent as far as I can see. And if AJ doesn't look spectacular and knock out Otto Walling, where will he go from there? Where does he go from there?
Will he be able to pull trigger?
Well, that's the thing, and I think if he just pulls a trigger, the target's going to be there because he's not going to move his head. He's just he's not a clever southpaw. You literally do, Russ. I know it's easier said than done. When you want to nail a kid like there's different southpaws, they're all different. When you want to nail a kid like Walling, all you do is you back him up, you drop your height, you step your left foot outside his right foot. And as soon as you step your left foot out, you throw the right hand down the pipe. You throw the shot on the outside, and that's how you catch a conventional square southpaw. And that's what AJ will do. And if he can't do that move against Walling, who's pretty slow, he really does need to hang them up then, because that'll be like, if you can't look impressive against him, you ain't never going to regain the World Heavyweight Championship.
No, you never are you.
How do you think it'll go?
Well, I think Joshua will beat him on points, but I wouldn't be surprised if Walling won, but I'm going to go for Joshua.
Yeah. Joshua's one of those fighters, I've always given him a tough time, but there are times when I do see him and he looks good. There are moments where Joshua looks class. Not all the time, by the way, before we get ripped to bits. But there are moments when you see cameos of what AJ can do and he looks class. And I've seen 2 or 3 of Walling's fights now, and he never looks class to me. I might be missing a trick. He looks really conventional. And if he's a world-class heavyweight, the division's worse than I thought it was.
They're getting them at the right time, aren't they?
Yeah, it's I know he's won a few fights on the turn and he's got a very good record on paper, but I saw him on the 6th round he did in the UK. I saw the fight with Gassiev, and of course we saw the Fury fight. He never looks impressive. He just doesn't look impressive to me. I think Joshua between 5 and 7 gets him out.
What about Joshua and Ben Davison link up? What do you make and that? What do you make to that with Derek James and all these trainers he's had? What do you think he's looking for, Julian?
He's looking for reassurance, which is never a great thing, because the reality is when you're in that ring, if you lose your confidence, and fighters lose confidence, and it's very hard for fighters to get the confidence back, but when you're in that ring, you're on your own and you have to rely on instinct. You have to box on instinct. Now, I will get hammered from this, but I like to look at certain things and give credit where credit's due. Now, we've only seen like a 20-second piece of footage from Joshua hitting the pad. Yeah.
Yeah.
With, hitting the I forget the name I've got in the bloody garage. And the strike shield. We've only seen a very limited amount of footage from Joshua doing that. Before anybody jumps down my neck, I'm just talking about a very small thing that I noticed when I saw Ben Davison. Now, when I've seen AJ with Rob McCracken and AJ with Derek James, and he's throwing left hooks, for example, yeah, to maximize his power, he's always recoiling the left hook. You literally dip it, wind the core, and throw the left hook. And it's something I saw him doing with Rob McCracken, and McCracken really getting that torque on that left hook. Now, anybody knows, so people should know, and this is obviously I'm breaking it down now, but when you're a puncher, but when you throw a left hook, the only time you put recoil on a left hook is when you're following a right hand. So you throw a right hand, automatically you push your right shoulder forward, your left shoulder dips, and then you get the recoil on the left hook. But when you're throwing a left hook on its own, or you're doubling a left hook, there shouldn't really be any recoil. You don't pull it back to tell the guy in front of you, I'm going to throw a left hook. So if you want to see Don Curry iron out Milt McCrory, or Mike McCallum iron out Don Curry, or the masters of the left hook, or if you see, other fighters throw brilliant left hooks, you generally don't see the recoil. What I mean by the recoil is the dip and the shot. Tyson used to throw it, but he was a completely different style. I'm on about conventional left hookers. And what I saw with Ben Davison, and I get to the point, Ben Davison had him throwing it from the right hand, the left hook, the left smash, the razor hook smash. I always liked that shot, which was a hybrid between the hook and the left uppercut. It's a 45-degree shot. When he was throwing that with Ben Davison, just on a small clip, by the way, before I get lynched, he wasn't putting recoil on the left hook. And I thought it was really clever. There's only a small bit of footage, but it was clever what Davison was doing, because that's the type of stuff AJ should have been doing so long ago. Because his left hook was always like a really great shot, but there was too much recoil on it. So when you got the recoil on it, you can't get that shot off. You can't get lead left hooks off because you're putting too much on it. And Joshua always had a really, really good left hook. So what Davison's doing, I'm labouring the point. What Davison had done just in that small window that I saw is teaching him to punch correctly. Now, that might sound ridiculous for somebody who's Olympic gold medalist, two-time heavyweight champion, but there are fighters out there who sometimes can't do the basics. You've heard me say this a million times before. There are good fighters out there who can't do the basics. I'll give you an example. Billum Smith at the weekend can't block a jab. It's the most fundamental basic thing that you learn is to time the jab and block the jab. Billum Smith can't block a jab, yet he's a world champion, or he holds a version of a world title. So people listening be saying, I don't know, you're getting at Jules, he should know how to throw a left hook. And he puts too much recoil on his left hook. And it was just a snippet. So I've given Ben Davison criticism over the years. The bit I saw, and I'm not making a case for Anthony Joshua being rebuilt, by the way, based on a 20-second clip. But what I'm saying is he had him throwing his left hook correctly. Left hook to the head, left hybrid smash to the body, left hook to the head, and he never once put too much recoil on the shot. So I thought Ben Davison, in that small clip, that was really great coaching.
Oh, Ben Davison getting a 10 out of 10 from Julian, eh?
People forget the basics when they're training world champions because you make an assumption you already know how to throw a left hook. It's unbelievable how people make these mistakes. I think Ben Davison, what I got from that clip is you've gone right back to basics. And he must have had a very honest conversation with him, which your fundamentals and your basics are not that good. We need to start again. We need to start at the beginning. I am reading a lot, by the way, into a 20-second clip. I admit that, but really good coaching, really good form and technique from Anthony Joshua on the little bit I saw. Very good.
What about Miller Dubois? How do you see that going, Julian?
Miller, look, I've never been a lover of Dubois. I've been harsh on him and I don't rate him that highly. But I rate Jaron Miller even less, probably because he's a drugs cheat. The dirty stuff that he was on was the needle job, the whole lot. But, he's only done what a lot of other heavyweights and a lot of other top fighters have done and gotten away with or had lesser punishments. But I don't get where this Jaron Miller's a real force comes from. I think he's worse than Daniel Dubois. He's got no power for such a massive guy he's huge. I mean, 299 pounds in one of his recent fights. For such a massive guy, he's got no power at all. He doesn't have much head movement. His stamina's dire. People are saying he throws all these punches. He might have done 5 years ago. And I'm going to go against convention. And I'm going to say, I hope Daniel Dubois knocks him out. And I think Daniel Dubois will knock him out.
Yeah.
He hasn't beaten anyone. He's just, I'm not a Dubois fan, you know that. He hasn't beaten anybody.
Yeah.
And Dubois has got heavy hands. He does punch correctly. He's got just talking previous about AJ, he's got a lovely right uppercut, left hook. He's got a solid jab. He turns the right hand over. He punches correctly, does Dubois. And I think if he hits Miller cleanly enough, he'll knock him clean out. I hope so.
Mm.
Miller's shite.
Is he?
Shite, mate. Shite. I struggle respecting fighters who come in looking like that in a ring. I always have done. It's like there's overweight, and then there's Oliver Hardy and Rick Waller. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be a professional athlete. You're giving it all that. You look like you've had a Brazilian butt lift. You got tits out here. You got big belly out here. You got no definition, and you're giving it the big I am, like you're a big noise, putting it on AJ and putting the heavyweight division on notice. You haven't beaten anybody at all. You're a dirty drug cheat, and you're not in shape. You can't expect me, Russell, knowing what I'm like, to respect that.
Yeah.
I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want him to get hurt, but I hope he gets knocked out for about 20 seconds.
He's a cock.
He's a prick. He's a prick who's talked, another one who's talked himself onto a big night in Saudi. He's done nothing to justify that. He beat the Australian who was about 130 years old, and he beat him, didn't he, in 6 rounds. And you're going to dine off that?
Deontay Wilder says that Parker should be worried.
That's an interesting fight, is Parker and Wilder. I like that fight. I probably like that fight because Parker technically is not bad. He's got a decent textbook style. He's dedicated. He's got a good work rate. Again, he's another heavyweight who throws punches correctly. But you just know at some point, don't you, Wilder's going to land on that chin. And I think there's no doubt if Wilder lands on Parker, he drops Parker. If he lands on anybody, he drops anybody. But I'm wondering, with all this time out of the ring, what is he now, 38 years old?
Yeah.
If I was going to put my mortgage on anybody, I'd put it on Wilder to do the job within 3 rounds. But if you're going to say to me, look, you can't pick up any winnings on a favourite, but you can have one underdog on that show. You can have one underdog. I'd say, all right, I'll put my money on Parker. There's going to be an upset, it'll be Parker.
Yeah.
Don't think he will. Don't think he will. But I think if there's going to be an upset, you know, in some fights, you just have the makings of an upset.
Yeah.
There was Wilder. He's not boxed for over a year. Two fierce beatings by Fury out of his last 3. He's only had a minute's action. He's coming up to 38. His stamina in the Fury fights, the second fight particularly, but even the third fight was dreadful. While Parker's got to be tough and game, he's got to expect to hit the deck and get hurt. And if he's got some real minerals and he can survive the onslaught that's going to happen in the first 3 rounds, and there's going to be an onslaught, if he can survive that, he's in with a real chance of outlasting Wilder. Don't think he'll do it, no. But I give him a 30% chance in that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wilder likes to get him out early, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, I know the Ortiz rematch, it lasted a little bit longer, didn't it? Was it 6, 7 rounds, and the first one was 8 rounds, but he's not getting any younger, is he? And you know me, whenever you ask me about boxing, I always talk about activity, don't I? All the time. Active fighters are the most successful fighters. It's just how it goes. You got to stay active. You got to be in camp. You got to have back-to-back camps. And Parker, at least, has been consistent in training and fighting. He's got rounds under his belt. He's had a much better preparation for this fight than Wilder. But it's just the fact that Parker's probably a B- fighter. And Wilder's an A- fighter, isn't he, at heavyweight division? And generally that makes a difference.
Yeah. There was no announcement for Billy Joe. He was supposed to be fighting in December, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's like anything with Billy Joe, isn't it? Brilliant fighter. You know I don't want to see him fight again. The reality is what happens is when you've had 2 year out, 3 year out, and you got millions in the bank, in your mind, I'm back. I'm going to start training again. And they can always string together 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know what's happened, by the way, but they can always string together 3 or 4 weeks in the gym. And what happens when they've been out of the gym for years, Russell, and I'm surmising here, I'm just saying this is what happens. They get injured. They get injured, they go home, they rest up, start eating whatever, drinking again. And it's just hard to maintain fitness, and it's hard to maintain, focus in the gym when you get older. It becomes impossible. Injuries, age, inactivity, millions in the bank. Fighters always want to be a fighter up there. But when that alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m. and you're in bed and you're snuggled up to your wife and it's raining outside, not easy getting up, mate.
No, and I think it's silk pajama job for Billy, isn't it?
I think that's it, buddy. I really think that's it. I think, will we see him again? We might do. But yeah, I've seen it. I've seen fighters who have come back to the gym. I've seen fighters who have wanted to go again, and they'll hit the pads, they'll hit the bag, they'll move around a little bit, do a bit of sparring. It's the stuff that fighters don't want to do, that they don't like doing, that you have to do, that makes them successful. It's the early morning runs. It's the gym work. It's the floor exercises. It's the dieting. It's the living clean on a weekend. It's all that stuff that fighters hate. Every fighter loves boxing. Yeah. You get any fighter, you'll never get a fighter bored of going on the pads or hitting the bag or sparring. Even when they're not fit, they'll do that because that's boxing, isn't it? That's the art of boxing. When it comes down to the burpees and the crunches, and the touch the toes and everything else, and the box jumps and the runs, and it's raining, hardest sport in the world, mate. People don't want to do it.
Yeah. DAZN are going to show that on 23rd and TNT Sports, and people are saying, well, they're going to pay for TNT Sports because they don't want to listen to Tony Bellew a day before Christmas.
It's all a bit cringe, isn't it? But I'll pay for it on TNT. And
DAZN then, no.
I won't do DAZN. I can't do with the I can't watch the before the bell. I can't watch the media workouts during the week when you've got, no disrespect, because I like Darren Barker as a fighter. And I think Darren Barker as a man's a good man. I just think him and that Andy Lloyd are cringe. They're just like cringe. And I can't watch them. I can't watch the before the bell because I can't listen to them ignore the opposition and just talk about whoever's on, on the left-hand side of the bill, who's the favourite. I can't listen to those guys. And whilst I don't love the TNT, Laura Woods is just gorgeous. She's a brilliant presenter. She's so credible. I don't know if I want to listen to Richie Woodall say maintain the gap on every single fight on the undercard. That's a bit annoying, even though he knows his boxing. But I prefer to watch TNT over the cringe that is DAZN any day of the week.
Go on then. Well, we're out of time, so thank you very much, Julian.
My pleasure, mate. And we shall speak soon. All right, buddy.
Take care, mate.
Take care, Russell.
Right. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. Booyaka.
You like that one, didn't you? Right, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for liking and subscribing. It means a lot to me because we're on this journey together, aren't we? So anybody got any ideas for the channel, fire them over to me, porkycorner@mail.com. All right, Shout out to Innovation Alloys and South Yorkshire Packaging, all right? Don't forget to subscribe, keep on trucking.